Welcome to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast. Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast. With me this week is Kim Eastman, Vice President of Manufacturing with Jushi Holdings. Thank you very much for joining me today, Kim.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to email the podcast, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com. Kim, I always like to start by learning a little bit about what brought you to the cannabis industry. So, how'd you get here?
Yeah, I wish I could say I had this, longstanding dream and passion for the industry, but I actually honestly just fell into it. So I studied chemistry at the University of Colorado in Boulder. And, following my education, well, originally I thought I was going to be a doctor and, ended up enjoying college and, partying a little bit and ended up in chemistry. But from there, I went into actually the analytical chemistry field. So I worked for a company that tested on dietary supplements and botanicals. So, my work there was more on the analytical side. So I ran the testing lab. We had to do a lot of method development, troubleshooting. At the time, what we called herb of the month. Somebody would develop, discover some new herb that, solved somebody's problem, and they would throw it into their dietary supplement. And then they would send it to us and say, hey, need you to figure out how to test this and, make sure it's in the product so we can make a label claim. So, spent almost 10 years in that field working with, mostly analytical work, which kind of moved me, naturally into the cannabis field. But, honestly, I did that for about 10 years. I got burnt out from that job and, had a couple kids and took a year off. And, 1 year with two small kids at home will make anyone go crazy. So I decided to, go back to work. So started looking for different positions in, project management, laboratories, anything kind of science-based where I could use my skill set. And I found a position for a laboratory director. And as you scroll down, it was in cannabis. And I'm like, well, at least for fun, I'm going to go interview, and ended up interviewing with the clinic in Colorado and ended up getting the position. That was almost 10 years ago. At the time, it was like, is this real? Is cannabis a thing? Am I going to get paid in cash? Are we going to be, raided at some point and go to jail? But, luckily I fell into the right company at the right time. And, it's been a blessing ever since. There's been ups and downs for sure, but, thrilled to be where I am today.
I think that the pandemic helped a lot of people realize that being at home with a couple of kids can make anyone crazy.
It's true. It's true.
Do you feel like they have the same herb of the month mentality in the cannabis industry?
I guess not necessarily, but I feel a little bit like, well, number one, it's strain of the month, right? We all know Blue Dream, right? It's been a hit for years now. But I feel like it's a lot of kind of product of the month, right? It's like, okay, it's gummies, it's vape pens, it's rosin vape pens. It's kind of constantly always something changing to meet that market demand. So it's constantly shifting and moving. I wouldn't say it's extreme as herb of the month, right? But I have seen, a lot of manufacturers that are starting to take some lessons from the dietary supplement botanical industry. They're starting to put some of these products inside their, in addition to their cannabis products, which is definitely interesting. I'm not sure that we have, a hard stance on, whether that's, a good thing for the industry or a bad thing for the industry. But, I think we're still seeing a lot of players out there that still look at cannabis as, kind of this wholesome, plant that should not be touched, and, no other products, should go into, a product alongside it.
As the VP of manufacturing, how do you see some of these trends in terms of like product of the month, strain of the month, and determine whether or not it's something you want to move forward with in terms of manufacturing it across, multiple states?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a challenge, looking across all of our locations at what our product lineup is. Do we make one product specific to one market that's more mature? Is one, product line, or one market not ready for that type of line? What we have created is kind of a technical committee within our organization where we, kind of utilize our commercial team and marketing, our internal technical team to determine if any product is actually going to be viable. There's obviously regulatory concerns as well when you start dabbling in, true dietary supplements, right? Where you're taking botanical extracts and, even melatonin in a sleep gummy. Those are all things that we consider when launching new products. So it really is collaborative, but we do let the market really just determine what our steps are forward.
As an extraction innovation expert, what are some of the things that you've seen recently that you've found to be particularly exciting?
That's a good question. I think we're seeing a lot of the, kind of new extraction technologies that are starting to come out that are deviating from, your traditional hydrocarbon, CO2, ethanol. I think solventless is one that's, kind of really on the forefront right now. A lot of people are talking about it. From a facility design and build, it's much easier than, building explosion proof rooms. The market is starting to mature enough to kind of understand what a full spectrum product is and why something that is, kind of solventless and these rosin products are better. So, that technology is definitely interesting. I've seen some different, extraction systems. I saw a few at MJ Biz and, things are kind of floating around. It's a challenge though, I think from any, operator standpoint to kind of make that jump into a completely different solvent, different system, even if it's not even solvent based. It's easy to say this is tried and true. Usually there's a very short timeline from when, a facility is constructed and to when we need to get product to market. We're not typically given, 6 months, a year to, really play around with the technology and really develop the right products. So, there is a lot of risk when you move into some of these brand new technologies that have never been vetted. Now, I definitely, am following, but for the most part, you're not seeing people, kind of post negative reviews or even any reviews on a lot of this equipment. And then, when you look downstream at refinement, I mean, a lot of it's, just very traditional when you're looking at, refinement, winterization, solvent recovery. We're seeing systems that are, bigger, faster, but nothing that, is some turnkey solution where I put biomass in, my extractor and I come out with, some live resin batter that's already ground out, ready to sell, right? Nobody's quite there yet. So
Jushi really prides itself on high quality cannabis products. Are there greater challenges as you're trying to manufacture those at scale than you would typically see, in a craft operation?
I mean, there's definitely challenges when you scale, but we also don't really look at what we do as scale. We're not producing 15,000 units of one single strain. We still operate as if we were, a small, almost craft operation, in Colorado, like we used to. We're always looking for, variety when we're running, all of our genetics. Nobody wants, just 3 types of vape pens or 2 types of concentrates, right? So we're trying to do small batches, give our consumers and our patients, variety, which has its own set of challenges, right? Every strain behaves differently. What, looks good on paper to say, okay, we take this and put it in and we get this out, doesn't always happen, right? So there's definitely challenges there, but we don't want to lose the craft of our operation, right? We're not a distillate production factory. We're not just pumping out distillate and, throwing it into gummies. We're working, really hard right now in Pennsylvania to launch our full suite of live resin products, our rosin product line. And it's all, very strain specific, full spectrum, small batch for our consumers. That's important for us.
Is your product development ever constrained by the equipment that you have in house? When it comes to seeing new products come out, how quick is Jushi to sort of invest in the equipment to make sure that it can manufacture that product line?
Yeah, it's definitely challenging, right? To
Mm-hmm.
number one, I'm responsible for the facility, design, equipment selection. So how do we, procure the right equipment, design the right spaces, to allow for, expansion and growth? It is a challenge. Typically, when I design anything, it's like, okay, well, in this space, I'm going to put this piece of equipment, but I want to make sure I have enough power, right? And
Mm-hmm.
space to have a second, just having that freedom. But, when it comes to, new product lines, the frequency that we put things out, is strategic. It's not an easy task. Everybody wants everything now. It's like, oh, they got rosin in Pennsylvania. We want rosin in Virginia and Massachusetts. And there's a lot that goes into, just the infrastructure and getting all of these products, to market. But, we do prepare in advance, from a facility construction development standpoint. And if it is a product that we want to bring to market, I mean, we find a way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Move
Yeah.
this piece of equipment over here, drop it in, find the right equipment, get it here as fast as we can, bring in the expertise and, and develop. It's a fast process, but you got to be fast in this industry.
How do you manage operations through various states that are all operating under various regulations?
So that's the biggest challenge. I think people, assume, oh, you work in cannabis, you got 5-6 operations. It's like, no, it's like operating 6 completely different businesses,
Mm-hmm.
right? Regulatory bodies are different. The rules are different. Just the expertise of the staff that I'm able to get, into those facilities is different. So, our goal for the most part is to, standardize as much as possible. If I can put the same piece of equipment in all 5 locations, it makes it much easier when someone has a technical problem, right? It's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
hey, we call Joe from here and Bill from here, get you guys on a call and we can kind of figure that out. But staffing is a big one. We can't, a lot of times on the East Coast, there's a lot of new markets. People don't have that experience. So you're bringing in a whole group of, kind of fresh people to the industry. How do you teach them 10, 15 years of that experience? So, our goal is to, put together solid, kind of training plans, learning plans for these teams, utilize, our resources across other locations, right? We might have somebody that works in one location that has been doing CO2 extraction for 15 years. We can take their expertise, have them go up to that location, help us develop certain, procedures, help them train, put together training programs. So, that's kind of one component. The other really is just, how do we on a national level, launch a product line and have it be consistent across each location, right? We have different input materials. If you're talking about different genetics, different regulatory limits, right? Massachusetts, you can only have, 5 milligrams per unit. Virginia, it's unlimited. But it can only be, and then sizes, right? We can't order one set of molds that fits them all. We don't have, the same universal symbol. We don't have the ability to make purchases in bulk, which typically allows you to, reduce your costs. So, it is a challenge. I mean, I find myself, I'll be on, calls with the team. I'm like, what's the rule here again? 5 milligram, 10, 5.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So that's, yeah, I mean, I could list countless challenges with that, but, we do treat each facility kind of independently as its own operating, business, and then, pull resources from our teams across the country.
How big is your team, and what sort of management tools do you use to keep everything straight?
I got a lot of sticky notes. So I guess my role is within what we call our national team. So I have 3 people that work on my team, have varying levels of expertise. So one focuses on, infused products, one really knows extraction, and then, another has been kind of managing manufacturing facilities for his whole career. So we all bring something different to the table. And yeah, we catch up with the teams. We talk to them, in regular intervals. We have standing meetings. We talk about equipment issues, technical issues. Are they hitting their targets? Where's quality at? Have we had any quality incidents? Are there any safety incidents? We talk about, individual R&D projects and initiatives that go on in each facility at any given time. We don't have, a beautiful R&D facility where Jushi just, gives me, millions of dollars to put equipment in and test it. A lot of these processes and, development efforts happen at the local facilities, with those team members, which, in my opinion is great. It engages them at a local level. It helps drive, I guess, the scientific rigor behind our process. There's a lot of times these teams are like, hey, I want to change this. I think this is, I want to use this grinder, or, I want to use this heat tape instead of this process. It's like, okay, well, let's put together experimental design. You have to show me the data. We have to prove that it's an improvement before we make that change, right? So it's been really good for just the local team members to get that experience and knowledge and training, right? And kind of develop as an organization. But yeah, I mean, my team, we travel a lot, we're on site anytime there's, a problem or an issue, or there's development work, facility acquisitions, equipment commissioning, whatever it is, we jump on a plane and we're there to support.
Is it hard to travel with the family?
It is hard. I've been going 3.5 years now, kind of road warrior style. But at the same time, I think it's good for my kids to see, what a career is and what hard work is. It's always hard to say goodbye to them, but if I didn't love what I did, it would, it wouldn't be worth it. So yeah, definitely a challenge, but we find balance, and that's why our teams have expanded. I mean, when we started, it was one-man show. It's like one guy in cultivation. I think you've met Josh. One person in processing, one person in manufacturing. So it was us everywhere. So it's been great to have the team expand and allow us, all to have some balance, because there's a lot of planning that goes, into what we do in manufacturing. So it's hard to be on site all the time and helping the teams, and also, planning, world domination. So
how's the world domination coming? No, when it comes to R&D, I really like the idea of empowering the local teams, but that takes a great deal of trust. How do you sort of select the facilities that are going to try out something new? And what does it take for a team to sort of, I don't want to say prove it to you, but like kind of gain that trust where that it's in the right hands?
Yeah, it's definitely challenging. We've had, ups and downs. We've had some failures. We've had, teams that have not been successful. And, when that happens, we pull back. But, typically what we like to do is at least start walking, we talk to the teams. I want to know what their challenges are. Hey, this, we're seeing a lot of loss in this process. This takes a really long time. Whatever whatever the challenge is, then we'll start, diving in to figure out, we're requiring, an extra pass on our distillate to get to this, 85%, what can we do? So we start, just at least starting to have conversations. We really dig into, what are all the inputs that go into that process, so we walk through it, and we'll try to lay out kind of that experimental design. When we start, it's like, okay, here's the protocol, here's the form, fill in this blank, right? And if you can fill in the right data, get us the right answers, right? Then we kind of talk through that. I love Excel. I love data. If teams can come back to us with, actual, scientific, information that has, solid variables, solid data coming back, then we can, effectively say, yes, this is a good change. I've had a few facilities, right, where it's like, okay, we're going to do X study. Then we get back on the call to review. It's like, yeah, it worked. This is definitely improvement. Like, show me the data, right? So That's something we're learning over time. Is it's better to almost kind of lay out the design, let them know what the expectation is for data observations, to come back. That way we set them up for success. There's definitely this, desire to say, like, let's see what they can do, but we don't have the time or the resources to waste. It's better to just set them up from the start to be successful.
You mentioned these ups and downs and these challenges. how do you go about addressing a challenge when it comes up? Is it something where, you want to invest in new technology? Is it something where you kind of look at the process side, or is it something where you sort of just look at everything involved and try and figure out, the best way forward?
I think every situation is different. But we always like to kind of start the investigation from the beginning, right? Because there's a lot of variables and a lot of things that end up affecting, the result, right? It might not be the step you're working on. It could have been 3 steps prior. So, typically we'll investigate, from beginning to end, assess each individual process step, and then kind of take recommendations from there. I love new equipment. Jushi is all about innovation. We want to find, the better equipment. We want to find equipment that is going to, improve efficiency, reduce loss. So, we do a lot of bottleneck analysis, like equipment effectiveness. We run a lot of numbers to determine if there is one cause of the problem, we can pull that out and then start looking for innovation, right? If it's, vape pens, we're having issues, underfilling, overfilling, leaking, we can't hit the numbers. We just, kind of target that. And then we just, hit the manufacturing market and start looking at different systems and talking to vendors and working to find solutions. I ask all the time, I'm like, hey, you want to give me a demo unit? Happily to provide feedback. Just let me use it for 2 months, right? So, some are more willing than others, but hey, anyone listening, happy to have a demo system and be your tester. Let us know. So,
well, and then in turn, just let us know how it goes with like a review. That's just perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
So in late June, Jushi debuted a new line of concentrates made using hydrocarbon extraction under the Lab brand, I believe. Can you describe the process that it takes from concept through manufacturing and development and manufacturing to bring a product line like that to market?
Yes. I'd like to say, we've thought about this for the last, 2 years and have like strategically planned, it moves very quickly. We have to assess, number one, the market. How mature is the market? Are they ready for a rosin? Are they not quite there yet? Are they willing to pay live resin prices, or are we kind of dealing with, your butter prices, right? So, we start assessing there. We look at, number one, our genetics, just to understand, what kind of products we'll be able to provide. On the concentrate side, obviously there's a lot of different consistencies. We just had a call this morning talking about it. No matter, whatever market you're in, someone calls things, different items, in Pennsylvania, very strict with, Department of Health overseeing that program. So, there's certain strains they won't allow. There's certain products names they won't allow. They won't allow you to call something a sauce or butter or batter, right? So we have to be creative in there. But yeah, we buy we got the, best equipment, that we're, that money can buy at this point. We've got a brand new facility, and, from there, it's really the testing of all of our genetics, and they all, behave differently. So, that's, really step one is to extract every single strain, right? And start to understand which ones give you, higher terpene content, big, better yields, which ones are good for solventless extraction, which ones are going to be good for hydrocarbon extraction, and really start narrowing in that list. We work with commercial to understand the needs of the market, what product lines are doing really well, and then from there, it just goes into production planning. It's like this strain, this amount, this day. And, we kind of work through that list and work to get this, kind of steady flow of product to market with changing, strains and changing varieties, which, it's a task for sure. But I think that's what consumers want, right? They don't want, again, blue dream, crumble always available, right? They want to see change. They want it to be exciting.
Was it similar, like was it a similar fast on-ramp for the solventless live rosin that came out the month before?
It was faster.
Oh, really?
Yes. So if you heard, the Pennsylvania Department of Health recalled all of the vape pens that were in the state that were using botanical derived terpenes. That was one of the product lines that we had offered. So, when that product line was removed, it was like, all right, what do we do? We decided on solventless. We converted, a couple rooms that we were supposed to be making, soft gels in. I think within 4 weeks, we had the equipment procured on site. Our facilities team and construction team were amazing. They came in, got all the power ran, got the equipment set up. Another probably 3-4 weeks later, we had, the rosin vaporization pens developed and all of the concentrate line in a matter of 8 weeks. I mean, it was a sprint, where it is, kind of a badge of honor, like how fast we can move and bring a product to market, something like that. If you did it right, you could take a year, right? You do tests, run all these strains. And solventless is a challenge, right? Not every strain works. Not every strain yields well. It's all about, the trichome development and the shape. But we, at least got lucky there. We've got a few different strains that work well, and we're constantly, on a pheno hunt trying to find the right genetics. But yeah, I mean, it was eight weeks from kind of kickoff until launch of that line, and we were the first to market with a true solventless product, as opposed to pressing hash with pressing flour with a curling iron, like some of the.
8 weeks is incredible. To what do you attribute that speed to market? Is it just that you're you guys are such a well-oiled machine, or how do you guys make it happen?
I mean, I wouldn't say, we oil the machine, is whether it's well oiled. I mean, there's times where it dries up for sure. But, I think just the tremendous team that we have, that we work with. I mean, I always say to new people getting into the cannabis industry, I mean, it's insane. Like, you have to be going at, an extremely fast pace all the time. It never slows down. I mean, you're like, okay, I'm just going to get this initiative's done, this project's done, and now we can slow down. No, it actually never stops. Right. So, when these types of situations come up, it's everybody gets in a room. It's like all hands on deck. This is what we need. This is the equipment. This is the facilities. You need to engage your team here. We need, packaging design. We need packaging procured. All the compliance submittals going in. We need to bring a consultant online, make sure he's ready to go. I mean, it's just kind of all hands on deck, with everybody realizing like that was the number one priority for the company, and everybody, they don't drop everything, but everybody shifts priorities to make sure that happens. And it continues. I mean, it's across the organization. Just any given day, what do we need to accomplish? And everybody's there to make it happen.
You say that it never stops. How do you sort of prevent yourself from getting burnt out like you did in the supplement business?
Well, I can't say I'm not burnt out like every other day. I'm like, oh God, it's too much. And then the next day I'm like, yeah, no, we're going to do this. Right. You just kind of go through these cycles. I think anybody that's worked in the cannabis industry longer than 5 minutes, kind of realizes that it is a challenge. But what I guess keeps me going is I have a really good team. I need to learn as well, that I need to depend on other people to handle things. Sometimes it's like, well, I already know how to do that. I can do it faster. I can do it better. Right. It's like, no, it's better to, lean on the people around you, either develop them, educate them, train them how to do it, so that it will, kind of free me up, or free my team up, right? Giving more responsibilities to the local sites, has really helped. But, the reality is the industry is not changing. The speed at which we're going to market isn't changing. The pace at which we're doing, acquisitions isn't slowing, right? So our goal is just to establish, rigorous systems and standards that we can, kind of execute quickly. That's our goal, so that it doesn't feel like, chickens with our heads cut off all the time, right? I mean, maybe sometimes, but we have a direction. We know which way the road is, and not to go that way, at least, right? So
that's all you need. Just make sure you stay away from the road.
Exactly.
So the company recently opened its 34th retail location. As a vertically integrated company, what goes on in the background to make sure that, everything is ready and from a supply standpoint when it comes to stocking the shelves?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, our grower processor kind of division within the organization works, extremely independently from our retail. Retail is just another one of our customers, whether they're wholesale, or one of our own internal dispensaries. So our local sites obviously are aware of when these dispensaries are launching. They, kind of preface what they're going to need, but we carry a wide variety of products. Obviously not just our own internal brands. So
Right.
our local teams and our local, GPs work very closely with retail to make sure they have everything we need. For the most part, though, we're constantly, innovating, launching new products. In Pennsylvania, for example, we have, I think, 18 stores. I lose count. So, we launch a product or we're going to put something to market. It's like, okay, well, what do we need to supply 18 stores, right? Plus the wholesale market, not just two or three, right? So you're thinking at a larger scale.
As Jushi continues to grow, how do you manage equipment upgrades and replacements? How do you decide when, it's time for equipment to be replaced or upgraded?
When people complain about it enough.
All right.
Typically, no. Yeah, I mean, we do look at each individual, site independently. But honestly, a lot of the feedback we get from our operators really does drive kind of next steps when it comes to equipment replacement or, innovation, whatever that is. A lot of times, I'll find equipment, right? Doing my research or seeing something new. And, it's definitely hard to justify to say we have a piece of equipment that's fully functional, fully operational, but we want to, potentially try this. And really it's a justification process. Like I said before, that bottleneck analysis, understanding end to end, like, the way we look at it right now is if something is not a bottleneck, we don't really focus on that. So our goal is to find efficiencies within the program. If this is the piece of equipment that's causing the most, most loss, the most headache, it's down all the time. We have a lot of technical problems with it. We track that, and that's the piece of equipment that we'll target. And then we kind of, head out to the manufacturing world and kind of see what's out there to replace it. But again, a challenge, like I said, there's a lot of new innovation out there. It's tough to just, bring a piece of equipment in that's going to fail. I mean, I think I have 3 reactors that I have in each of my facilities right now because we were trying to do some work on the winterization side and it didn't work. Right. So, our goal is to never have a graveyard of equipment, but always continue to innovate. Right. But it's, again, site specific. If I have a team that's extremely strong, extremely capable, that's typically where I will kind of target where I would put some of the new innovative equipment to test.
Okay. And I mean, it's not necessarily inevitable, but as you do start stacking things up in that graveyard of equipment, are there options for it outside of, scrapping it?
Yeah, we have a pretty solid procurement team. They shout out because they've made my life and everyone's within the companies much easier. We're looking all the time for outlets for used equipment, right? When we bring a product to market and decide, okay, that's not going to work, or we have an acquisition and they're making a product line that we wouldn't make, right? They will take a lot of that equipment and try to sell it on a third party, outlet. There's a lot of lab equipment, websites out there. But, it's something we're, continuously working on. If, I never want to go into a warehouse and see, all the reactors and all the rotovapes and things that we've either, grown out of. So, I would love to see some, legitimate, like cannabis used equipment kind of marketplace. I thought I saw one back in maybe 5-6 years ago. Someone tried to create something like that. But it's tough. You never know how they treat their equipment, right? Did they follow all their PMs? Did they maintain it? Did they qualify it? It's a challenge. So, but yeah, we always are trying to kind of move assets out, and bringing new assets in, because frankly, we just don't have storage space either to hold a lot of this equipment, right?
No, space is at such a premium, particularly in this industry, that I hear that a lot, where there's just not room for that dusty equipment.
No, there's not. And, every, literally square foot in our, growing processing facilities, we want to be generating revenue. So, we try not to maintain a lot of inventory, in terms of supplies. We don't want to obviously take up that space. We do typically have offsite warehouses where we'll, kind of store, some bulk material, packaging supplies and things like that. But yeah, our goal is to use literally every inch in that facility to produce a product or to generate some kind of revenue. So
have you guys, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's like, removing office spaces, removing, extremely, kind of large storage rooms. None of that actually contributes to revenue. So pull it out and,
no, I like that idea. Like, find the cubes and tear them out.
Mm-hmm.
Have you run into any supply chain issues the last couple of years that have been impacting the industry?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think everybody has, right? I mean, I think the biggest impact it's having on us is really in terms of our construction. When you start building these facilities, you have delays on lumber and steel and, mechanical units. I mean, pretty much everything, equipment delays. Instead of, 12 weeks, now you're 20 weeks. So, I mean, we eventually get what we ordered. It just takes a lot longer. And, speed to market is king here. So, it definitely is a challenge. For the most part, most equipment that we're looking to procure, we're able to get, if not, we shift quickly, right? I need C1D1 cameras. They are back ordered until October. So we shift, we find a different supplier and we find different, options. Now we're not willing to sacrifice the quality of a piece of equipment. I'm not going to go switch from, the $500,000 CO2 extraction machine and go, find someone on Craigslist that's going to sell me one to get something in. That's not what we do. But, we always are willing to shift and replace as needed. But yeah, construction's definitely been the biggest challenge, delayed the commissioning of a lot of facilities by months because of these issues.
What are your expectations for federal legalization?
I'm not optimistic about it. I don't think our politicians can actually get their heads together enough to actually, kind of move legislation forward. In my opinion, strictly my opinion, I would love to just, kind of move forward with the states running those programs. I think it's going to be way more effective than the federal government. I mean, we know how effective they are at literally nothing, basically. So I would believe that we would see all of the individual states either moving forward with a medical or an adult use program individually, probably well before we see federal legalization, in my opinion. And that would be preferred, right? I mean, if we can get some standardization in terms of regulations and laws across all of these, all of the different states, that's a win for industry. It allows us to be competitive, across multiple states. But yeah, it scares me to death to think about the federal government getting involved in what we do. So
yeah, understandable. As a new state comes online, when do you get involved in terms of whether or not Jushi is going to move into that state? And how do you have to be prepared for when the company is going to make that move?
Yeah, so I'm typically involved. I mean, from the business development standpoint, they're always looking at a lot of different markets, right? Assessing different acquisition targets. We like limited license states, wide variety of conditions. We don't want to go compete in an Oklahoma, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where there's literally a cultivation, every 100 feet. But once they find a target and a state they like, we kind of come together, discuss it, and then we'll typically go on site to go audit and check out the facility that we're looking to potentially acquire. Some are better than others. We've seen a lot of equipment in containers. Really shoddy work, dangerous facilities, and our business development team is obviously getting much better in terms of understanding what our standards are, right, and what's safe, what equipment is good. If these manufacturers are producing solid product, that we would be, in a good position if we were to acquire them. But typically that's where we come in first, is we go in, we do kind of a quick preview, and then we go in and we'll do, a real deep dive. We look at, all the equipment, all the teams, all the numbers, the products. We, basically, lift up the curtain and look at everything. And then, we basically put together our recommendation, whether we move forward or not. Once we, decide to move forward, that's when we start kind of our planning. So, typically might be 3 to 6 months before we would actually close on an acquisition, and during that time, we're putting plans in place, right? From a transition of teams. Do we need to restructure anything they're doing? Are we going to, continue the products that they're manufacturing? We're doing brand transitions. All of that planning goes in. So when we come in day one, like, hey, welcome to Jushi, right? And, we can give them an understanding of what's in store for them and what we're going to be doing next, and why they should be excited to work with us, right? So
right. When you walk into those potential acquisition targets, how quickly do you know whether or not it might be a good fit?
5 minutes.
Yeah.
Typically, right? I mean, you can tell, for the most part, it's, the most beneficial thing about these facilities, number one, is the facility, the layout, right? And the equipment. Is the facility built and designed so that we can either expand to do the product line that we want to bring on, and then really it's the team. The team is one of the biggest assets in one of these acquisitions. So you can spend 5 minutes with someone and know if they, are a scientist or they're a bro scientist, right? And what kind of skill set they have, and what they're going to, kind of bring to the table, and how they'll complement, Jushi and our team. So, I mean, pretty much right away. Cultivation's a little bit, more challenging. You got to really get into the grow and start, digging in. But from a manufacturing standpoint, I can look at a table of concentrates or their product line and say, like, yeah, no, these guys have no idea what they're doing, or yeah, they're solid. And, this is going to be a good addition to our, to our facility.
What should the Cannabis Equipment News audience expect to see from Jushi going forward? Both in the near future and kind of long term.
Yeah, and the near future, our focus right now from a manufacturing standpoint is really on our kind of craft line of concentrates and vaporization products. We're working with all of our facilities to continue to expand into to hydrocarbon and solventless. So we're really excited to bring all of those products to market. So our consumers can see what cannabis is, aside from distillate. So really looking forward to that. We're going to be completing our manufacturing facility in Virginia by the end of the year, in that market, which I'm sure, if you don't know, it's going to be going to adult use, I believe 2023, maybe 2024. Timeline is always shifting. So we're excited there. We're going to be bringing on a chocolate line, our pressed sweet tart line there, as well as we'll have basically all the extraction solvents in that facility. The state of Virginia is now allowing for hydrocarbon extraction, which means it opens us up to bring on that craft line that that the lab is defined by. So really excited for the Virginia market and everything we're gonna be doing there. And then just keep an eye out for solventless, because it's going to be coming pretty much everywhere pretty fast.
Of the product lines that you manufacture, what is the most difficult?
I would say that's tough. Solventless is easy, right? From a physical standpoint, how you actually make the product, how you wash, hash, freeze dry, press, that's easy. What is challenging is looking at genetics, right? And finding the right strain, finding something that will actually, be profitable. Some of these genetics, you wash them and you'll get, a 1% yield. You'll lose money all day on that, right? So that is one of the most challenging ones, is to find the right cultivars for that line of products. From, I guess, live resin, while it seems easy from a concentrate standpoint, which it is, really diving into our pens. That's been it's a challenging product to make, and it's a challenging product to train people on. We don't cut any of our pens with distillate. We refuse for we want that full spectrum product. So there's a lot of steps we take to ensure high quality, full spectrum, that everything comes from that plant, without, taking any shortcuts and without kind of risking our employees. If you've talked to people that have kind of made, different live resin pens in the past, they use mason jars. They put them in ovens or little bombs, to make their diamonds. It's not safe. So we've really worked hard over the last 6 months to develop the process that keeps our employees safe and, kind of keeps the integrity of our product line. So, we're excited about that one coming out, but yeah, it definitely was not, as easy as like, pouring into a jar and sticking into an oven and, in a month you've got, awesome diamonds. That's not how we're manufacturing the product. So, ours is going to be the process we've established allows us, consistency, standardization. It allows us to be able to train somebody instead of, you can't train people, that haven't been, looking at this material for the past 5 years. Like, oh, I know what that strain's going to do just based on how it comes out of the extractor, right? We can't operate nationally with that kind of model, right? So we have to put in, processes that work for every strain, work for every facility that will allow us that high quality standard product across all of our kits. So.
You were surprised that you found yourself applying for a job in cannabis, getting a job in cannabis. Now that you've been here for a while, do you see yourself staying, or, is it possible that you might move into a different industry at some point?
No, I see myself staying. I mean, there's definitely days where I'm like, man, there's got to be something easier, right? I'm like aging in dog years. I'm like the wrinkles, the grays coming through. But, anytime I ever stop to think about what else I would want to do, it all seems honestly kind of boring, right? Especially from the laboratory side. I remember when I was in college, right before I got kind of I was in my first job in the analytical lab, and I applied for a job. It was with a food company, and they made cheese. I remember sitting there. They're like, "Yeah, you're going to be great for this role." I'm like, "That's great." I'm like, "So what else do you do?" And they're like, it's just cheese. We test cheese, try cheese, like you just same cheese, different day. I'm like, I couldn't do that. Right. So, that's one of the nice things about this industry is every day is, brings its own set of challenges, but it's also so rewarding, to see just the developments that we're capable of making in such a short period of time. I love seeing, all the team members that work at all these different individual sites, like learning and developing, and you see the excitement on their face. And, it's just it's a great experience. I love this company. I love everybody that works here. We're able to work with people that, are just really experts in their field, from quality to compliance, safety, cultivation. I learn something every day, and it's hard to think about giving that up. So it won't be for a while. And if I do, it'll probably be, a restaurant on a beach somewhere.
Yeah, something easier like the restaurant business.
Yeah. I joke all the time. I'm like, I wonder if Costco's hiring. Like, what's that like to just go to work, do your job, and then go home and just, relax instead of like dreaming about work and like worrying all the time. But, it is what it is. And, I love it. And I've, kind of lived under that pressure for, my whole career from, supplements all the way through today. So, don't see anything changing at this point. It's just a warning for everybody coming into the industry, right? It's, it's not easy, and you got to be able to work hard if you want to be successful.
Before we get out of here, is there anything else that you want to make sure the Cannabis Equipment News audience either knows about Jushi or yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say keep an eye out for the lab, the line of products coming out. Most of our operations are on the East Coast, but we're really excited for our concentrate and our vape lines coming out. So keep an eye out for those products, and leave us reviews online. We do read them and take everyone's feedback seriously. So,
how often is it that an online review, actually makes you guys make a change?
Quite often. We review for each of every location. We look at all of our reviews on a monthly basis. I get weekly, kind of reviews into my inbox. I can see basically every return that is made in our retail stores, because we want to be able to act quickly. So yes, we do hear everything that's being said. And for every one review, there's probably, negative review, there's probably 100 people that love the product. And, when you like something, you don't typically go online to complain about it. Right. So, but yeah, we look at each individual one and we take it seriously and we act on it. And, some are just amusing. If you've ever read some online reviews, they are just fun to read. So,
oh man, in the comments sections on some of our websites, it's like, just don't even go in there. Don't even go in there. And then you're just down that rabbit hole. And it's just, sometimes it's a really nice place to be. And other times you're just like, what is happening?
Oh, it is. I go into some, Reddit pages for each of the individual states. And I'm like, oh, let me see what people are talking about. And, they say stuff about the brand and it's just plain wrong. And I'm like, I just want to get in there and tell them and I'm like, no, okay. It just tells you that people are not informed and we need to educate people more. Even with just the recall in, Pennsylvania, when they pulled all those just, botanical terps off the shelf. I mean, you should have seen the comments people were making, like they're poisoning people, like, no wonder somebody must have died. And I mean, it just, people go off the rails and you can't listen to all of that. But, for people giving legitimate reviews, if our vape pens are not pulling, or there's leaking, or, the flour is dry, or, the gummies, hardened after, X amount of time, or they weren't feeling the effects they were supposed to feel. I mean, we take all of that into consideration and it definitely drives, development and our improvements.
Well, Kim, thank you very much for taking the time today. It was really interesting to learn a little bit more about what you do and learn more about Jushi in general.
Absolutely. Yeah. I appreciate you having me.
All right. Well, before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You can also help us out a lot by leaving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to email the podcast, you can reach me at david@cannabisequipmentnews.com. All right. For Kim Eastman, Vice President of Manufacturing at Jushi Holdings, I'm David Manti. This is the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast, and we'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast.